Hello artists, Miss Schickel here with your lesson for week 8. We are going to continue exploring watercolors and autumn themes. So the tools that you need today are your watercolor set with brush. Hopefully you remembered to take care of it last time you used it, and so you gently wiped off your brush and put it in the set so it doesn't get broken or lost. A napkin or paper towel, water cup half full, your crayons, and either a piece of paper or your sketchbook. Okay? So the same tools that we used last class. And today I am coming to you to share about pumpkins. Pumpkins are an awesome autumn fruit. We don't usually think of them as fruit, but they are fruits. They grow on vines and they have seeds inside. Now this is a styrofoam pumpkin. This poor styrofoam pumpkin has been through a lot. Somehow the stem has come off and gotten lost. It is ready to be chopped up and made into a pumpkin pie or maybe some pumpkin muffins. Ooh, frozen yogurt with pumpkin puree mixed into it. Oh, I feel hungry now. I hope you've already had lunch. So this is our pumpkin. And so we're going to play with pumpkins, watercolor, and patterns today. So our pumpkin is sort of a round shape. It's sort of a sphere. And this particular example of a pumpkin happens to be orange, but you could do your pumpkin in whatever color you wanted it to be. When I go to visit Nall's Produce over on Beulah Street in Alexandria, they have what feels like hundreds of different kinds of pumpkins. Pumpkins that are tiny that you can hold in one hand, pumpkins that are like 600 or 700 pounds, pumpkins that are orange, pumpkins that are yellow, pumpkins that are tan, pumpkins that are green, pumpkins that are a little bit of like a brownish color. I mean, they come in every color. So because we're playing today, if you wanted to make an orange pumpkin and you love orange pumpkins, you could do that. If you would like to make a turquoise colored pumpkin, you could make a turquoise colored one. Because this is an imaginary pumpkin and we're going to add some patterns on it and play with our wax resist magic today. So I'm going to shift my screen over here. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to be drawing our pumpkin. So we're going to start out by making sure it's nice and big. So we're going to put our hand on the paper and I'm going to put, you know what, I want to go the other direction. If you want to keep your paper like this, you may. I just suddenly, you know, that's what it is to be an artist, right? You get to change your mind. You get to edit and revise. So I'm going to put my paper that way. And I'm going to put a dot underneath my hand and a dot above my hand so that my pumpkin is nice and big. Now, because I turned my paper, my pumpkin is going to be tall and narrow. So I'm going to start with a letter C, a line that curves up and back down and comes up to the dot. Now I want it to be nice and dark, so I'm going to come back and I'm just going to outline that line. And remember, you can be doing this in whatever color you want yours to be. And then I'm going to make a backwards C on this side. And I'm going to go around. My pumpkin is almost square, like that square pumpkin in the story. The Scary Pumpkin story. So now I have my pumpkin. And pumpkins usually have sort of what we call ribs on them, these little sort of dents in there that make these sections. So I'm going to come with another little letter C on the inside. So I'm just going to, same line, but it's going to be inside. So here it goes. Start at the top, come down to the bottom. All right. And I want to draw it nice and dark. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Oh, I got really close to the edge. Okay. Sometimes your crayon slips, but because you're an artist, you just go with it. And then I'm going to put one more segment right here in the middle. So just with a line. It doesn't have to be perfectly straight because it's a pumpkin. Pumpkins aren't perfectly straight. Now, last pumpkin I did, I forgot to put the stem on, so I'm adding my stem right now. And I'm going to make a curved stem with a bit of a circle on the end. So there's my stem. Okay, that's kind of thin on the top, so I'm going to make it a little thicker. There we go. All right, so now that my pumpkin is drawn, I'm going to switch crayons and I'm going to switch to the white crayon. We're working on white paper, and so it's going to have some magic. It's going to be invisible. Now, one of my favorite artists is an artist whose name is Yayoi Kusama, and she is from Japan, and she's 80 or 90 years old now. But she is still making artwork. And one of the artworks that she loves to make is artworks of pumpkins. She also loves polka dots. So if you go to the Hirshhorn Gardens in Washington, D.C., they have a giant pumpkin sculpture that she created. And it's sort of a yellow colored pumpkin, and it's covered in polka dots. Her polka dots are black. We're going to do a pattern in each one of these 4 sections. Now you can do the same pattern in each one, or you can do a different pattern in each one. You get to decide because you are the artist. If you like polka dots and want to do polka dots, you can do polka dots. If you're like, no polka dots, I want to do lightning bolts, you could put pattern of lightning bolts. If you want to do stripes, you can do stripes. I'm going to do a pattern of flowers in this middle section here. So I'm going to start. Remember, you want to press really hard. Notice how close to the end my fingers are. I want to hold my crayon close to the end and press really hard. You know, all those little crayon pieces, they're coming off on my fingers, right? We want to have a lot of those today because that means your wax is nice and dark and it's going to help your watercolor magic work. So I'm doing flowers here, and I'm going to do a third flower here. I think I'm going to be able to fit 4 in this section. Okay. And I'm going to do polka dots in this section. And I'm going to do a pattern of big, little, big, little, big, little. I'm going to have to skip the big and make a little. Big, little, big. And then I have room for one more, pressing nice and hard. I'm going to do zigzag lines, which will make something like triangles in this section here. Pressing nice and hard. And, oh boy, I need something for my last one. I'm going to do hearts just because I feel happy. I could have done sunshine. Sunshine makes me feel happy too. Do little clouds, happy little clouds, puffy little clouds. Okay. And then I'm going to wipe off all those. You might use your napkin or your paper towel to wipe off all those. Ooh, you know what? I'm going to put some lines inside of the stem just as a last minute. I just had this idea. Okay? So now I'm going to carefully move my paper so it's on the table. Yours is probably already on the table, flat. But paint drips when it's up on the air, so I'm going to do the painting part on the table. So here we go. I'm going to lower my camera down so you can see my paints and my paper. And we'll remind just a couple reminders that we want to be really gentle with our brush. Hopefully your brush is nice and pointy because you were just tickling your hand. Practice that a minute before we start with the actual paint. Just tickle your hand. Ooh, that tickles. It's kind of like a little bit of therapy. And then I'm going to practice tickling the paper with the paintbrush. So let's move this out of the way. Here we go. So here's my painting. I want to try to make sure it gets all in the picture. I'm going to practice tickling. See how just the point of the brush is touching the paper? Tickling. Just tickling. Okay? And then last class we practiced swirling gently. So I want you to pretend that there is a sea monster that lives in the bottom of your water cup. Don't wake up the sea monster. So swirl gently. And because you're an artist and this is your pumpkin, you could paint your pumpkin blue or green or purple or orange or yellow, any color you like. Swirl gently, wipe, and I'm going to start with yellow, and I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, my brush is starting to turn yellow, but it's not very yellow yet. So I'm going to go dip, wipe, swirl. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now my brush looks a lot more yellow, and I'm going to gently tickle my paper. When I do, I'm going to start to reveal my pattern. If it's not coming off enough, dip, wipe, and put your brush back down. If there's no more yellow, dip, wipe, swirl, 2, 3, 4, 5, and paint. Remember, if you have too much paint, the magic trick won't work. So make sure you don't have too much. Dip, swirl, wipe. Swirl on the paint. Remember, just tickle. Try not to let the metal ferrule touch the paint. Tickle the paper. Dip, wipe. Tickle the paper. Oh, this is the one that I had big and little dots in. Swirl to rinse. Dip, wipe, swirl. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, the green is very thirsty. Dip, wipe, swirl. And I'm going to put green on this section. Dip, wipe. Oh, I'd forgotten. This was the section where I did zigzag lines. Dip, wipe, swirl. Dip, wipe, paint. Remember, if you've got too much water, if it's making puddles, you might end up with a hole in your paper, so be gentle. Swirl, and I'm going to wipe, and I'm going to switch to blue. And while my green is still wet, I'm going to paint some blue on top of the wet green. When I do, the paint mixes and blends, and instead of green or blue, I now have blue-green or turquoise because I mixed and blended the blue and the green. Swirl, wipe. I need to do pink next just because. Dip, wipe, swirl. Oh, I should do this one with the pink. Those are my hearts. Dip, wipe, swirl. It's kind of a pattern, right? Dip, wipe, paint. Tickle the brush. Dip, wipe, swirl. tickle, 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 dip, wipe, paint, dip, wipe, swirl. Helps sometimes to say the pattern, right? Dip, wipe, that way you remember all the steps. Dip, wipe, swirl. Dip. Ooh, I'm ready to rinse and change colors. Dip, wipe. Oh, what color next? Oh, purple. Gotta do purple. Dip, wipe, swirl. Tickle the paper. And there come my flowers. Dip, wipe, swirl. Tickle the paper. Dip, wipe, paint. Just tickling the paper. Dip, wipe, swirl. Tickle the paper. Dip, wipe, paint. Dip, wipe, swirl. Dip, wipe, paint. Dip, wipe, swirl. Oh my goodness. All right. Remember, if there's too much, it'll cover up your pattern and the magic won't work. So don't use too much. You can always add a little more. Okay? I'm going to do the stem. Dip, wipe, swirl. Dip, wipe, swirl. I'm going to rinse, swirl, 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 and I'm just going to do some dots in this section around the hearts, just because we're playing with patterns and it makes me feel happy. Okay, make sure you rinse your brush really well when you're finished. Wipe and press gently. Put your brush away with your paints. Make sure you close it. And then put it in a safe place to dry. And make sure as an artist you've signed your name to the bottom of your artwork. I'm going to turn mine and sign it. Okay. And make sure you share in the Art Google Classroom because I would love to see your fabulous patterned pumpkins exploring watercolor techniques. Have a great time, and I look forward to seeing your work and seeing you next class. Happy creating!